So the Smogon World Cup started quite a while ago, and in this video I wanna cover my 3 games from Team Germany for the World Cup qualifiers, and I would start right into it. My very first game is against Team Belgium, against the player Vanoni, and I'm really honored that I am able to play for the UU slot of Team Germany for the underused tier. I haven't played the underused tier for such a long while, so it's gonna be very interesting to see how I will do in this new meta for me. And in my very first game, I wanted to try out Choice Band Tyranitar because the underused meta is known for not many dark resists. The only dark resists running around are Cobalion and maybe like Grimmsnarl and Kommo-o, but all of these Pokemon don't have any recovery, so that's why offensive dark-type Pokemon like Hoopa and Bound or Tyranitar are really good. So I'm using Choice Band Tyranitar with a defensive Terra type of Flying, which helps against fighting and ground type attacks. And then I've just got Stone Edge and Knockoff. Ice Punch is to hit Kommo-o and Hydrapple, because Hydrapple is one of the best Pokemon in the underused tier. And then I've got Low Kick because I was really scared of Ursaluna and I wanted a way to one-hit KO Ursaluna, and that's why we've got Low Kick instead of stuff like Crunch, because Crunch is better after Pokemon are already knocked, or Earthquake. There are a lot of moves you can run as a 4th move on Tyranitar, but I decided to go for Low Kick. And the best partner for Tyranitar is Excadrill, because Excadrill got the Sandrush ability, so it is a very good speed control option, and I'm just running a Swords Dance set with Earthquake, Rock Slide and Rapid Spin. I'm running Rock Slide instead of Iron Head because that's just you don't really need Iron Head. Iron Head is just good against Hydrapple and maybe Latios as well, or Sinistra. But Rock Slide is overall better for Zapdos, because otherwise I cannot hit Zapdos, so that's why I decided to go for that. And my investment allows me to always survive a +6 Aqua Jet from Azumarill after Belly Drum, because I can get a Belly Drum against Latios, it can get a Belly Drum against Tyranitar if I lock myself into Low Kick or Ice Punch. So being able to survive a +6 Aqua Jet, it was really important in my opinion, and that's why I have a Terra Dragon. Obviously I have to Terra for that, but that's fine. Then I decided to go with a little different Latios set, because usually you would run Choice Scarf or Choice Specs Latios. I decided to run a Soul Use set instead to surprise my opponent a little bit, because maybe after Draco Meteor he might double switch to something because he thinks that I'm locked into Draco Meteor, and then I can get the switch advantage with Flip Turn, because as I said, the common sets are Choice Scarf and Choice Specs. There's also an Ability Shield Latios set to prevent Excadrill from going for Earthquake, because Excadrill has the ability Mode Breaker, but with Ability Shield, Latios can still keep the Levitate against opposing Excadrill, which is pretty cool. But I'm running the Soldier set as a fast special attacker. I still need Stealth Walks. I didn't put Stealth Walks on Tyranitar, I didn't put Stealth Walks on Excadrill, and that's why we have Cobalion on this team. Air Balloon Cobalion is just really good because it can work as a one-time check against Ursaluna, Excadrill, Tyranitar. There are a lot of Pokemon that have ground type coverage, so Air Balloon helps against that. Yeah, just makes speed, a lot of bulk. I think the 80 attack are, what was it again? OKO Excadrill, I think. Yeah. It was nice to have some attack for the close combat, and Thunder Wave is also a good option to support Tyranitar a bit more. In general, this is a Tyranitar momentum based team. I want to get Tyranitar in as often as possible, and that's why we've got Flip Turn Latios, Volt Switch Cobalion, as well as U-Turn Tornadus. U-Turn Tornadus is just a really good pivot, and Hurricane Heatwave Weather Ball U-Turn is such a good coverage, because with Heatwave I can hit with Steel types, with Weather Ball I can hit Pokemon like Opposing Tornadus, Mandibuzz, but especially Tornadus. It could be cool to remove Tornadus for Cobalion, for Pex, for Excadrill. There are a lot of merits removing Zapdos just for the team. So that's why I decided to go for Weather Ball as the 4th move. Just max special attack, max speed to do as much damage as possible. And the last Pokemon is a Rocky Helmet Toxapex, because I wanted something that's good into Lockix, because so far I've only just got Cobalion. And otherwise, first impression is a bit scary, and also having something against Physical Kommo-o, as well as Hawlucha. There are just a lot of setup Pokemon that Rocky Helmet Toxapex is able to beat, and I didn't want to run Haze, because I think there's not much in the tier running around that you can Haze, but with Toxic and Baneful Bunker, I can make sure that I get correct poisonings. For example, if the opposing Tornadus decides to go for a U-turn on my Baneful Bunker, then he just gets poisoned, and this is really good chip damage for Latios and Excadrill. And Toxic overall is a very good move on Toxapex. I decided to run a mixed death set, because I also tend to switch Toxapex into Zapdos, because Tyranitar isn't the defensive set and Excadrill just gets blown away by Heatwave. So having the opportunity to switch into Toxapex onto the Volt Switch here and there is pretty nice, and this is the team for my very first game. So let's see how it goes. So the lead is pretty important in single games, and we can see that our opponent runs a very interesting Trick Room team with Slowking, Cresselia, Ursaluna, Hydrapple, Skeledirge and Scizor. Some people might call it Caesar. But yeah, overall what you can see immediately is that Choice Band Knockoff from Tyranitar looks insanely good, right? He has no resistance and even 3 weaknesses. The scariest Pokemon definitely is with Ursaluna, but we've got some tags with Low Kick Tyranitar as well as the Air Balloon Cobalion. Scizor can also get out of control pretty quickly, because with Sword Stance Bullet Punch there is a way that he can just sweep through my team, because I'm also running offensive Tornadus, which doesn't survive a +2 life or Bullet Punch. So it's really important to keep either Toxapex healthy or Excadrill healthy, or just keep the Terra for Tornadus, because I'm running Terra Steel on Tornadus. I haven't really explained the Terra types that much, but you definitely need a Fairy type, and that's why I decided to put Terra Fairy on Toxapex. Terra Steel on Tornadus just helps against Hydrapple and Scizor, which we both face in this matchup. And Terra Steel on Latios is also just really nice into stuff like Sandrush Excadrill, because it cannot touch Terra Steel Latios at all. And Terra Ghost Cobalion is just nice to use it against fighting moves, which would be otherwise super effective, and also pretty nice to block stuff like Rapid Spin. But yeah, that's about the team. Here I'm really taking a long time making some calcs to make sure that I don't see anything wrong, because I thought that Tyranitar the lead is just great. Against Hydrapple I just go for Ice Punch. Against Scizor I can switch into Toxapex, give it Rocky Helmet damage if it's Choice Band U-Turn. Against Slowking, Cresselia and Skeledirge I can just use Knockoff. I wanted to KO the Slowking, but he has a Colbur Berry, which is pretty smart because he doesn't have a Dark Resist otherwise. Now taking a Hydro Pump would be pretty bad. So what I can do instead is I can go Latios, I can go Toxapex. I should not go Cobalion and lose my Air Balloon for free. I should not go Tornadus, because my Tornadus is, as I said, very offensive. So I could just go Toxapex, because Toxapex is also not bad in Trick Room, because it can outspeed Ursaluna as well. Actually, it depends a bit on his spread, because if he is really min speed, then he is faster than Toxapex, but I can stall a Trick Room turn with Baneful Bunker as well. So that's an option, and I think it's just the best option, honestly, because he doesn't go for a Psychic type move into the Tyranitar. He could go for Future Sight, but I'm quite alright with that, and we see Flamethrower. I think he expected a Cobalion switch, or he doesn't have a water type move. I immediately went for Toxic because I expected him to switch to either Hydrapple or Ursaluna, and getting a poison on Ursaluna is better than a burn, especially if it's a toxic poison. But now we are very low with Toxapex. I can go for one Baneful Bunker because he might just go for Facade, because we have 3 Earthquake immunities with Tornadus, Cobalion and Latios, so it is very likely that he goes for Facade or Ice Punch or Drain Punch, but he won't go for Earthquake. Maybe he just doesn't have Earthquake, maybe he has like Headlong Rush, but he literally went for Earthquake, and I was shook because I never expected him to go for Earthquake in that position. Now I go Cobalion, and this time he goes for the Facade, which is really bad. Now the question is, do I want to double to Tyranitar? Because the Skeledirge switch is so obvious. I could also go for Volt switch, I could go for Stevox, but Stevox don't do a lot because Skeledirge probably carries the heavy duty boots. The Ursaluna doesn't take a lot of damage, and the other 3 take 12%, which is still nice. But the problem is, what if he just stays and goes for Earthquake and goes for an aggressive play? What do I do after? I could go Tyranitar, but then he can go Terra Fairy with Ursaluna and KO my Tyranitar, and I lose my best mon. I cannot go Toxapex, I cannot go Latios. Like, he will get 2 KOs, and then later he can Luna Dance his Ursaluna with Cresselia. That's why I rather want to play it safe and go for a close combat, because even if he switches, I'm in a good position, because he can switch to Cresselia and get another Trick Room up, but then I can just Volt switch into Toxapex, stall the Trick Room turns again, or I Volt switch into Tyranitar and go for a knockoff and pressure my opponent a lot. He goes to Skeledirge, that's pretty sad, but now I can just go for Volt switch, react on what he does. He probably stays, and he could go for Will-O-Wisp. I can go to Tyranitar. The question is he really Will-O-Wisp on the Trick Room team? Because that team looks a bit weird to me, to be honest. He could also be Choice Specs, but he goes Hydrapple. And that's great, because now he dies to Hurricane from Tornadus, or to Draco from Latios. I could go Latios and force a Terra, because Hydrapple always wants Terra. Actually, it is pretty versatile, but most of the times it wants Terra Steel or Terra Fairy. But do I want to lose Latios already? That's a good question. I think I can go Latios here. What I do right now is not the best move, because I go Tornadus. He doesn't have a Flying Resist, but I am scared of Choice Specs Draco Meteor. So that's why I decide to go for U-turn, because if he goes Cresselia, I get another KO with knockoff. If he stays, I could switch into Excadrill or Cobalion to catch the Draco, but it's not the best position to be in, because I want to be Excadrill to be very healthy for the Scizor, because +2 Bullet Punch, especially with Toxapex that low, looks pretty scary. I still don't have to forget that. Also, the custom avatar I'm using is the World Cup custom avatar, so a freshly made custom avatar, and I wanted to reconsider going for U-turn, because, as I said, there's no Hurricane switch in. But then I thought, okay, what if I miss and then he KOs my Tornadus and he just stays? And now I'm in a bad spot, because I am forced to go Excadrill on the Fickle Beam, and he is live up Fickle Beam, not even Specs Draco Meteor, and I have to go back to Tornadus because he can just go for Earth Power because I don't KO him, and Excadrill still is not in range for a Bullet Punch. Even Terra Steel Life Orb +2 Bullet Punch doesn't quite KO me. That's why I go back to Tornadus, and he goes to Cresselia. And Cresselia is not a problem for me because I can just U-turn to Tyranitar technically and claim another KO with Knockoff. And that's what I do here. I go Tyranitar and I go for one of the worst plays you've ever seen. I was so confident when he goes Ursaluna because I was like, okay, when he can get 2 KOs with Ursaluna, later he Healing Wishes or Lunar Dances with Ursaluna, but then he doesn't get the Flame Orb anymore because I would knock it in that turn. I went for a low kick, which was terrible. This low kick was seriously looking back at it. Also, I'm because I wanted to fully lock in for the games, I'm this is a post commentary, not a live commentary, because I really want to win because it's a team tour. I don't want to let my team down, and now we are in a bad position because the Skeledirge could just freely go for Torch Zone, and now because it's max special attack Skeledirge, he can claim a KO here. I don't have a knockoff, I don't have a Shadow Ball switch, and I could go back to Tyranitar. Tyranitar would outspeed, but what if he goes Terra Fairy, then Terra Blast, Earth Power? There's just so much that can happen against my Tyranitar, and I was scared using my Tyranitar to the fullest. And this is completely on me. I should have just went for knockoff 2 turns earlier. But at least we got a serve off, and now the Skeledirge is at 50%. So now I can go Tyranitar, and now he doesn't Terra, right? Because if he goes Terra Fairy and I just click Stone Edge, he just burned his Terra for nothing. And yeah, I just go for knockoff and he stays, and I at least could get rid of the Skeledirge. But now the Ursaluna can join the field and get a KO if he uses the correct move, because if I go for knockoff and he stays, then I just get another KO, and he goes for Facade, I get another KO. But if I switch, well, it's a 50-50, because if I stay on Facade, I get another KO, but I could also switch to one of my ground immunities on the Headlong Rush. So does he go for Headlong Rush and get the KO here? Does he go for Facade? I go for a mid-ground play in Cobalion, because Cobalion would survive a Facade, and if he goes for Earthquake, I'm alright with losing Cobalion. That's what I thought, at least, because Cobalion isn't great into Hydrapple, is bad into Cresselia, and it could help out a little bit against Scizor, but I thought that keeping Excadrill is nicer, especially because Excadrill dies to a Facade and Cobalion does not. So in this position I felt very confident with the Cobalion switch. I planned that game out already, because I thought, okay, I can just use Terra Steel Tornadus for the Scizor as well as the Hydrapple, and I use Tyranitar to get rid of Cresselia, because if he doesn't have Trick Room anymore, then Ursaluna and Hydrapple aren't that skinny anymore, and he gets the read right in Earthquake. Flame Orb Ursaluna is always tough to use, because if you get your turns wrong, you are in a very bad position, but if you get them right, it just picks a kill every time. And I decided to go Latios here because I wanted to threaten a lot of damage, and I could technically go for Terra Steel to survive the Facade, but I felt that I think I went for Draco Meteor. I can't quite remember. I went for Flip Turn. Oh yeah, I wanted to Flip Turn into Tyranitar because Flip Turn puts it into knockoff range, and there's no shot he uses Earthquake here. So I can flip turn into Tyranitar and get a KO with knockoff, because I would literally just get a KO immediately. And now it's the same thing. He goes to Cresselia and I can go Tyranitar. So now I either force him to Terra or I get a KO. And as you can see right here, he decides to go for Terra Fairy. Well done, because now he gets the Trick Room up. And now I have to store the Trick Room turns. He still has 4 Trick Room turns, which is bad. But remember that we have Terra Flying on our Tyranitar. And if he goes to Ursaluna now, which he does, that's perfect, because now I can use, he burned his Terra, now I can also use my Terra, because even if he goes for stuff like Ice Punch, as long as Scizor doesn't get a Swords Dance, Tornadus survives the move and one-hit KOs it with Heat Wave. So that's the plan. Or if I get damage on it, I can KO it with Excadrill as well, because Excadrill isn't in range for Earthquake, for Bullet Punch, +2 life for Bullet Punch. And as we can see, he goes for Earthquake, and that's amazing, because now I get a knock off, and now he doesn't have a Flame Orb anymore. And now I tunnel vision a little bit, because I am not allowed to take any more damage on Tyranitar, is what I thought. But in hindsight, I am not allowed to get damage on either Torn or Excadrill or Latios, because Latios can get rid of a Hydrapple for free. And if I just KO over Ursaluna here with knockoff, I can deny him from clicking Swords Dance, or I can get a knockoff off and put him into Earthquake range from Excadrill, as I already said. I just didn't want to get into an endgame position where I have to hit a Hurricane against the Hydrapple with my Tornadus. So that's why I decided to go for knockoff, never mind. And now it's not worth to keep Tyranitar anymore. It's literally not worth, and he gets an Ice Punch freeze on Excadrill. And now I'm scared, because I thought, okay, he can go to Tyranitar now, to Scizor. I went to Tyranitar expecting him to switch to Scizor, because against Frozen Excadrill, it's a free opportunity for him to go for a Swords Dance. And now I have to go for Flip Turn with Latios. I'm not allowed to KO with Ursaluna or the Hydrapple with Luster Purge or Draco, just because against Latios, the Scizor would get a setup. Latios doesn't get Mystic of Fire anymore, and then he can just go for Swords Dance, OKO my Tornadus with Bullet Punch, OKO my Latios with Bullet Punch. And now this is an interesting position, because if I U-turn and he goes to Scizor, I lose. So I could go for Heat Wave, but what if he stays and gets a Fickle Beam off? And that play works. I can U-turn to Excadrill, but he goes for Nasty Plot. And now I'm considering, okay, I could go Tornadus, because now he could go Scizor. But I just go for Swords Dance. And he went for the Scizor switch. If I would have, if I stayed frozen, I would have lost. Because then he gets a Swords Dance with Scizor, and then he just Bullet Punches 3 times. And now I really want to make sure that I don't throw this away, because I can technically still lose this, because he already said GG, but what if I miss Draco? What if I miss Hurricane? Then I made the calc, okay, I'm sold you Latios, I can just go for a Luster Purge, because even if he has special defense invested and survives with Luster Purge, he cannot heal himself against Latios, and then I can KO over Hydrapple with U-turn, but Luster Purge KO'd him, and that's game. First win for me, for Team Germany. In my second game, I'm up against one of Spanish best players, London Beats, and I wanted to play something different, as you can already see. I wanted to play Thunderous Furion, because I felt that Thunderous Furion is way too underutilized, because it's not a staple mon in UU, but I thought it's a good mon in this matchup, so I wanted to use Terra Water Thunderous Tea. with Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, Focus Blast, and Weather Ball. Weather Ball is a nice tag together with Chilly Reception Sloking, because when Thunderous Furion has the Bolt Beam coverage, so I can hit ground types, I can hit dragon types with the Weather Ball, which is pretty cool. And Terra Water together with Volt Absorb is just a great defensive typing overall, and that's why I decided to run this Thunderous set. Together with Choice Scarf Mienshao, because I wanted something that is really fast and punishes Pokemon that go for a substitute against stuff like Slowking. Kommo-o can go for a substitute, for example, and then I can go for Chilly Reception into Mienshao and go for Triple Axel. It's just a very good revenge killer, and with U-Turn I can get Thunderous in, as well as Ursaluna, because I've got a very Heat Ursaluna set as well. We've got Air Balloon Tinkaton because I once again needed something for Lockix, and Air Balloon Tinkaton is pretty cool with Pickpocket, because when he clicks U-Turn or any move, doesn't really matter, and then I pop my Air Balloon, and then I steal his item with Pickpocket, which is pretty neat, because when he takes rocks damage because he doesn't have the heavy duty boots anymore. I've run Anchor as well, because with Chilly Reception I can Anchor, Bulk Up Ursaluna, Sword Stance, Excadrill. There's just a lot of stuff that Tinkaton can Anchor because it's so fast, and I decided to be 1 point faster than Jolly Lockix, because many people actually greed for U-Turn against Tinkaton with Lockix. So I thought if I can get a play rough off because before he goes for U-Turn, that would be great. So that's the thought process behind that. Then we are using a Ursaluna with Terra Grass, because Grass is a nice Terra, because you get rid of a water weakness, you get rid of a grass weakness and gain a resistance instead. And we are using these 4 moves because Ice Punch once again is for Hydrapple, and Drain Punch is against the many Steel type Pokemon with Air Balloon. Cobalion runs Air Balloon, Excadrill runs Air Balloon, so being able to OKO these with Drain Punch, you don't quite get Cobalion, but also having the opportunity to recover with your Ursaluna is just really nice. And the speed is chosen to outspeed Skeledirge, as well as Pokemon that creep onto Skeledirge, stuff like Hydrapple, for example. When we've got Ogapon Teal Mask, once again, if people want to set up, I can just deny it with the fastest Anchor in game. It's not a Prankster Anchor, but it's after a Terra, I gain +1 speed, so it's a very fast Anchor. And with U-Turn, I can get Thunderous or Ursaluna in once again. And Ogapon Teal Mask is just a good Pokemon overall. And last but not least, the Slowking with Chilly Reception, obviously. Future Sight for good measures, and Thunder Wave is also a great support for Ursaluna, Thunderous, because also the Ursaluna hits 176. So it's faster than paralyzed Latios, paralyzed Ogapon, which is pretty cool because they might get paralyzed against Slowking because they might greed for damage with Draco Meteor or Ivy Cudgel. I'm mainly physically defensive, but I'm running a plus special defense nature because the special defense of Slowking is just so high, and that's why it is very worth to play Assassin Nature. Running Min Speed allows me to speed tie with Slowking, because you want to have a slower Chilly Reception against opposing Slowking, because they go for Chilly Reception, you go for Chilly Reception, and then whoever is faster has to send out Vermon first, and then the other Slowking switches out, and then they can react to what the opponent switched to. So being slower in that particular matchup helps, and that's why we are running Min Speed Slowking. And let's see how it goes this time. I'm stupid and forgot to press the recording button, so this time we gotta watch a replay, which is okay, I would say. And in the lead, I can technically lead Thunderous immediately because he only has Ursaluna as Volt Switch immunity, and I can click Focus Blast into Ursaluna. I could obviously also lead with Mienshao, but I thought I wanted to cover basically everything, and that's what Thunderous T does. and he decides to lead with Metagross, and I thought, okay, I need damage on this Metagross, and I don't have a good switch in, and he is a Soul Dressed Metagross, and I lose my heavy duty boots. I at least get another Volt Switch off, and the Metagross already took 60% with no way of recovery, and he goes for a knockoff again. That was pretty obvious, but I can just go to Slowking and now Chilly Reception into one of my Pokemon, and he goes to Ursaluna, so that's a good time to go into Mienshao, and I can threaten the Ursaluna out, and we see it's not Flame Up Ursaluna, so it's with special defense bulk up set, and I can just go for U-turn, and now I could go to Ursaluna and threaten a lot of damage with Facade, but there was still this Cobalion I was not really convinced about, so that's why I wanted to go Thundurus and go for a Thunderbolt, and I got super lucky because I get the 10% power onto the Hooper, and now I can use the Volt Switch into Tinkaton and get my Stealth Rocks up. And this is a really good turn because he goes for Hyperspace Fury, and I take that really well, and now I basically just get my rocks up, and he goes to Cobalion, and he doesn't have an air balloon, which is interesting, and I thought, okay, he probably is Stealth Rocks, Close Combat, Volt Switch, Thunder Wave, so I go Thundurus immediately to not get any Stealth Rocks damage, but he is Stone Edge and misses, and I connect with Focus Blast. Really lucky, and now I'm in a very good position, because I can go for another Focus Blast onto Ursaluna, and I miss. I cannot complain because the last turn and the Thunderbolt power into Hooper was really lucky. Now I can go Mienshao technically, but I wanted to go Ogerpon because I thought Ogerpon is also really good, but then he reveals that he is Terra Dragon. And now my timer is getting low, and I thought, okay, I need Ogerpon for Slowking, but I should have probably just went for knockoff, because what I did instead is go for U-turn to Slowking, and I knew that Ogerpon was in Earthquake range, but I still decided to go for that, and now this Ursaluna picks a KO, and this is not great, because now I am forced to go into Mienshao, and Triple Axel doesn't even KO him. I still decide to go for it, because maybe I get a critical hit, but I should have just went for U-turn, because I could just U-turn to Ursaluna and pick a KO with Facade, and now I'm behind quite a bit. I can go Ogerpon here, but he goes for Chilly Reception, and this is really bad, because now his Ursaluna technically gets another KO, and I decide to just toss Ogerpon away, because I thought, okay, Ursaluna can still just win this. I'm faster than Hooper KO'd, I'm faster than Slowking KO'd. I just need to damage the Mandibus, and that's what I can do with Tinkaton. I can also steal the heavy duty boots, and now I go for an aggressive play, which is U-turn, and now Ursaluna can pick its first KO. I wish I was Trailblaze. We were considering Trailblaze or Drain Punch. With Trailblaze now, I would have clicked Trailblaze on the Hooper sec, and then I would be faster than Metagross and Mandibus, and I can just use Facade, 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 and win the game. And now I have to switch out against the Mandibus. And I decide to go Tinkaton. And now I could Thunder Wave him. I don't have Thunder Wave on my set, but usually Tinkaton wants Thunder Wave, and then Ursaluna would be faster. That's why I expect him to go to Slowking, and I double to Ursaluna, try to catch the Slowking switch, but he just stays and predicts me. And I think it was not necessary for him, but really well done here. Now I go back to Tinkaton, and now he crits with foul play, but now he has to go Slowking, I thought. And he just stays again. Really well done, although I don't know, as I said, if it was necessary. And now he tosses his Ursaluna, which is interesting. If I wasn't choice locked Mienshao now, I might have had a chance, but since I'm choice Scarf on Mienshao, I still decide to go to Mienshao here and maybe win somehow, because now I can get damage with U-turn, and maybe, just maybe, he decides to stay with Slowking. He can always just toss Metagross or Mandibuzz, but in a world where he stays with Slowking and I crit with Slowking with Terra fighting close combat, I can win the game. Because then I can crit the Mandibuzz as well and hope that his Metagross doesn't have Bullet Punch. Like, it's just, I needed literally everything to happen, but he makes a good play, switches out Slowking to get the Regenerator ability activated, and now I can knock KO the Slowking, and I unfortunately lose the game. I didn't play that super well, although I got a bit lucky in the early game, but my opponent just played better. It happens, but we're still in the third game. I can win, so let's get right into the last one for now. For my last game in the qualifier stage, I decided to go for a Screens team. A Screens HO felt pretty good in my opinion, and now is the time to play against Floss from Team India. A very, very, very good lower tier player, but I can still win that. At least that's what I thought. And my first Pokemon on the team is Grimmsnarl with Spirit Break, Taunt, Reflect, Light Screen. Since I don't have any way to remove hazards, I need to run Taunt on my Grimmsnarl, and I thought it's just a better screen setter than Alolan Ninetales. And I run the Light Clay item, of course, and Terra Steel is just nice to get rid of the Steel as well as Fairy, as well as Poison Weakness, and just get an immunity and 2 resistance from these 3 types, which is just really good. It flips the type chart basically from Grimmsnarl. And against fighting types, I have a super effective Spirit Break, so that's pretty cool. Next up, we've got Kommo-o, and Kommo-o, I decided to run this set. It has just enough speed to outspeed the fastest Pokemon or fastest relevant Pokemon in the tier, Greninja, at +1 speed, and then max attack adamant and a bit of HP investment, because this thing behind screens just does not die. And Drain Punch, Thunder Punch is a very good coverage option, because with Thunder Punch you can hit flying types as well as Toxapex and else. And Terra Electric is also just really good because you can just set up on Zapdos. And yeah, this Pokemon got banned recently because it was just too good in the underused tier, and now it's in the underused borderline, so you can only use it in the overused tier, or Ubers technically, but no one will use it in Ubers. Next up, we've got Iron Crown, which is also a menace behind screens, because we have a Speed Booster Iron Crown set with Iron Defense, Core Mind, Tachyon Cutter, and Stored Power. Really, really, really good set, because behind screens you don't take any damage. You can just set up more and more and more and more, and then with Stored Power you just win off the spot. Yeah, whatever. I also ran Terra Electric on this one because I didn't want to get paralyzed by Slowking. I forgot to change it here. Then we've got Anamoris Fee, Anamoris Furion, which is also a really good Pokemon with Agility and Core Mind, similar to Iron Crown, but with Terra Ground this time around, and Fairy type, which is also pretty cool because it can sweep as well, because with +2 speed you are faster than everything relevant, which is not holding a choice Scarf, and it is so bulky behind screens as well. Speaking of bulky, we try the bulk up Ursaluna we just saw ourselves. A lot of special defense investment, because that's what you should invest into. Some attack, some speed, and the moves are self-explanatory, with Ice Punch getting rid of Hydrapple, Drain Punch as recovery option, and Earthquake as main step, because you don't have a normal step if you don't run Facade. I'm still running Guts instead of stuff like Bulletproof, because you get burned a lot from stuff like Scatterdirge, Scald, Slowking. There's just too much why you should run Guts. And then last but not least, I wanted to have a Walks or Spike setter because of Focus Sash Pokemon or Sturdy Pokemon, and this is why I decided to go with Greninja. Battle Bond Greninja can also serve as a late game win condition, and I decided to run Hydro Pump, Dark Pulse, Extra Sensory. You usually don't run Extra Sensory, and that's why I ran it, because I thought maybe I can snipe a Keldeo or a Toxapex or a Quaquaval, which would all resist Hydro Pump and Dark Pulse. Toxapex doesn't resist Dark Pulse, but the Extra Sensory is still stronger, so maybe I could get one of these. And that's why I decided to run 3 attacks Spikes Greninja as my last Pokemon. So a very, very offensive team with which I hope to win my last game. So let's head straight into it. And we can see our opponent Floss is also using a very, 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 very offensive team with Sturdy Ogapon Cornerstone, Swords Dance Mimikyu, Battle Bond Greninja, Lead Mew with Hazards, Swords Dance Lockix, and the same Iron Crown set as us. At least that's what I thought when I was heading into the game. He could also be Weakness Policy on Iron Crown with Agility and Core Mind instead of Iron Defense. That's also a set some people play. But overall, I wanted to make a game plan. And my game plan was to win with a certain Pokemon, which is Iron Crown. Because as long as I get a little bit of damage onto Greninja, Iron Crown can just win. Because I outspeed Cornerstone and KO it, I outspeed Mimikyu and KO it, I would KO Greninja after a bit of chip, I KO Lockix, and then in the Iron Crown mirror, I can win if I have screens up as well. So Iron Crown was my win condition. Ursaluna is really, really nice to stop the opposing Iron Crown because we are specially defensive, and it would 1v1 the opposing Iron Crown. We've got Kommo-o as well, which helps against Lockix and Cornerstone, and Anamorous is just really good into Greninja as well. So my matchup is really, really good, I think, and I could go for the obvious Grimmsnarl lead, but I could also go for a Greninja lead because the Grimmsnarl lead is just so obvious. And with Greninja I could get a spike up immediately to break the Sturdy from Ogapon. Doesn't matter for Iron Crown, but it could be important against Ursaluna, Kommo-o, and Anamorous Therian. So I took a long time to figure out what the best lead is, and in the end I decided to lead Greninja and he leads Ogapon immediately, and I was fine with that because I have Kommo, I have Iron Crown, I can just use a spike immediately and then use Call Mind with Iron Crown, because with +1 and a spike I 2-hit KO the Greninja and it doesn't KO me back with Dark Pulse, so I KO the Greninja then, but to my surprise, he goes for Ivy Catcher and I survive. This is so good. Now I could go for Dark Pulse, but my plan was to go Grimmsnarl right after to get screens up. And Dark Pulse into Spirit Break doesn't KO the Ogapon, unfortunately. So what I do instead is to go for Hydro Pump, but that has a certain reason because even if I miss, I can then go Iron Crown. And he is forced to switch out, he doesn't have removal, and he loses his Sturdy nonetheless. I get a critical hit, which doesn't really matter. Hydro Pump would deal 80%, so that's whatever. And now I decide to go to Grimmsnarl, I think. And I have two plays. I can go for Spirit Break and delay the screens one turn, or I can go for Reflect immediately. My better play is probably to go for Spirit Break, but I thought, okay, what if I Spirit Break and then he goes Mimikyu and goes for Swords Dance? But no, he just goes for Swords Dance, which doesn't make sense, because I could have as easily went for Spirit Break first and then set up the screen later. And with Ivy Catcher, he has 2 crit chances if he goes for the Ivy Catcher turn 3 and turn 4, and he would do the same damage if he doesn't crit. So that's an interesting choice. And I get the Reflect up now, which is good, but he still has 2 special attackers with Iron Crown and Greninja. And I can still get the light screen up, because if he goes Iron Crown now, I can also just taunt the Iron Crown, and then his booster energy Iron Crown is basically useless. And that would mean that later in the game, if I get an agility off with Anamoros, I would outspeed the whole team, and then he doesn't have anything to stop it anymore, really. Unless he has red card on his Mimikyu. And my Iron Crown would obviously look way better then. So he cannot go Iron Crown. He can also not really go Lockix, because Lockix doesn't KO me, and then Spirit Break is a thing. Mew is also not possible, because I can use Taunt on the Mew. So his only 2 options are Greninja and Mimikyu. And against both, I have solid options myself. Against Mimikyu, I can just go to Anamoros, because Anamoros is very bulky and I can just spam Moonblast. And against Greninja, I can just get a light screen up, because I survive Hydro Pump even if he is Life Orb. So I can just light screen, and he surprisingly goes for Ice Beam. And then I calced it, and I was like, okay, I always survive Surf. Hydro Pump is a roll. Does he have Hydro Pump, and does he click it? Should I keep it? No, I just go for Spirit Break, and then he reveals Protect. And Protect Greninja is wild, it's good for first impression Lockix, but he goes for Ice Beam again, probably expecting me to switch to Kommo-o, and I just get the KO, which is important and big. Because now he only has Iron Crown, Lockix, Mew, and Mimikyu available. And he goes to Lockix, and I thought, okay, I can just keep my Grimmsnarl, get a screen up later in the game, just go to Anamoros, because I don't need Anamoros for Iron Crown, and I can just go for Calm Mind, because I really want to deny setup from Iron Crown. So by going with Calm Mind here, I can force the Iron Crown to not switch in. Instead, he probably has to switch into Mimikyu, because Mimikyu is the only Pokemon that can now take this Anamoros. And after a Sword Stance, Player would KO me, but I would at least be able to get the Disguise. And he has the red card, and I get red card into Iron Crown, which is fine, because Shadow Sneak doesn't KO me, and I can just go for Tashion Cutter. I don't need to use Iron Crown for his Iron Crown anymore, and I get the KO onto Mimikyu. And now I thought, okay, what if he is Nastiplot Mew? I should go for Tachyon Cutter. I could also go Grimmsnarl and get a light screen up. This is what I'm thinking here, but I go for Tachyon Cutter. He is max HP, and he is also red card, and I get red card to Anamoros. And now I decided to go for Calm Mind. He has Taunt. It was obvious, but it doesn't really matter at this point, because even if I go for Moonblast immediately, he would just get one layer of Spike up less. But now I saw, okay, my Grimmsnarl dies to the hazards, and my Iron Crown is low. I have to make sure I don't lose to Iron Crown. That's why I go Ursaluna here, because against Anamoros, he can just Terra his Iron Crown and go for Calm Mind, and then I would just lose. But against my Ursaluna, he needs the correct set. He has Boost Energy, so I can just use Earthquake, and he is Terra Ground Iron Defense. And my heart sinks, because now I know, okay, I can go for Ice Punch, I can crit, I can freeze. I probably need one of these to win the game, because now I only do 20%, so he can get 2 more moves off before he attacks. He is faster than my whole team, because Grimmsnarl dies to hazards, as I already said, and nothing takes a move anymore. So now it's time to crit or freeze, now or never. I don't get it. The last chance, I don't get it. And now he goes for stop power, and I take a look at my team and I knew, okay, I should click combo immediately. Maybe he's scared of Terra Dark and goes for Tachyon Cutter. That's why I went for Terra Electric, because then I would survive a Tachyon Cutter. But now, as you can see, the damage is done and I cannot beat the Iron Crown. And this loss hurt. I will show you why. So I was the very last game for our team. Our score was 15 and 14. 15 to 14. 15 wins, 14 losses. And I knew that if I win, we would still remain in the tournament, because only the top 8 teams remain in the tournament. And as you can see, the 8th place has 16 wins, 14 losses. They are currently playing a tiebreak because there are multiple teams with that score, but that would mean we would still be in the tournament. Now that we finished 15-15, we are out. And this really, really, really hurts, because I went 1-2. If I won one more game, we would have still been able to play more games, maybe win the whole tournament. And it's the very first time as well that Germany doesn't make it to playoffs, at least as far as I can remember. From 2017 to 2024, we always made it to playoffs, and now we didn't make it, but we had such a good team. We had veterans, we had new players that were all insanely good, but we couldn't quite make it. It was partly unlucky, it was partly on us, because we threw some games away. I also did, because I could have just went hard Grimmsnarl onto the Mew, which clicked walks, win that game. Also in the second game I made some mistakes, but you learn out of it. It just hurts that I have to wait 1 whole year to have the opportunity to play the Smogon World Cup with Team Germany again. Now I can just watch how the other teams do. You can see which teams qualified already with Europe, US West, India, Oceania, Midwest and Italy. And then 2 out of the other 3 from Northeast, Chile and South will qualify as well. But yeah, it's not us. And yeah, I'm very, very sad about it, but I can't change it, and now I have to look forward to other stuff. But the time will come where Germany will win the World Cup. We will come back stronger, and I will see you next year. Bye bye.